And we're live again. And I'm going to find the video so I can actually see chat because that might be helpful. Aha, I found it. I'm going to send it to Cris. Hello, everybody out there in the world of YouTube. It has been a hot minute. It's been more than a hot minute. It's been quite some time since we have been alive. So I'm just sending that to Cris so Cris can see the video.
Yay. It's been hot, it's been cold, it's been all kinds of minutes.
Yeah. This is so on point for me today. I had my first call from the Dark Mother, very synchronistic. Hello, everybody. Hello, we've got Molly and Caitlin and Wayward and Julie and Efren and Arwin and Jesse. And I need to scroll up because Raw Spirit. Yay, there we go. Now we can scroll back down again. So it has been
all that work to scroll back down.
I know, it's just crazy. So it's been a little while. Yes. It's been a little while since we've done this. It's been quite a long while. So apologies for that. And I thought what we would do to begin this is talk a little bit about why that has been the case for both of us. Yes. It's been a little bit cray-cray of lately. The cray-cray lately. Hi, Questionable Goat. And Jennifer and Gothic and Mono and Angelica. Wow, we've got loads of people in. That's cool. That's cool beans. Right. So where have we been? I mean, I've been here, but there's been a number of reasons we haven't been doing lives like this for a little while, and a lot of it's quite personal stuff. There's some stuff. Lipstick game is strong today, says Molly. I came on like this and Cris was like, I need a lipstick. And I was like, you need a lipstick.
And I already, like, you know how you can preview see what you look like before you actually join the hangout. Mm-hmm. And I saw myself and I was like, damn, girl, you looking pale.
She needed something.
I came onto this diva and I was like, nope, that's it. I'm getting the lipstick. I'm done.
And Jerry started at 20 minutes early just in case this was the case. So like we've been chatting about what we want to chat about for about 20 minutes. So I took great issue with YouTube for a little while. They've been doing all sorts of weird shiz. They've been like demonetizing stuff, banning people for stuff. They've been kind of like anti-pagan. It's been stressful with YouTube. So that was one thing. Thank you. I'm digging this pink wig too. This is my favorite one.
I love the pink wig.
I might try some different shades of pink and see how that works going forward, because I do love the pink. And we've both been through kind of like a spiritual rebirthing, basically, is what's happened. We've had some major dark goddess work, some major kind of like phoenixy shiz, and it's been like everything falling on your head at once. And then you have to kind of deal with that, and then you kind of have to figure out who you want to be and have to grow from that and support each other from that. And it's been tough. And amongst all of this, plus a lot of different types of work that we have been creating and new stuff that we've been getting ready to release and whatnot, lives kind of were like the last thing on our mind, because we do sit here for a good couple of hours usually.
Yeah. And like, I love doing it. I love lives. Oh, yeah. It's broken my heart that I haven't had the time to be on that too. But with everything else that was going on, which I will explain a little bit more in detail in a second, because I feel like that'll just, I don't know.
It sets us up for how we got to this point.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, but I love doing lives. It's just, there's priorities in terms of where is your energy counting the absolute most in terms of like what you need done. Like you need your main check marks checked first, and then you get to the other stuff. And unfortunately live, especially with like YouTube and whatever the hell they've been doing lately and everything else going on, it was just like, I love you guys and I miss talking to you, but I got to do with this other shit first, basically.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and tell them your side of it?
Yeah. So I figured out the other day, it's been like 6 months, I think, because I think the last one was in like December.
Mm-hmm. Beginning of January, maybe?
Yeah. So January was just me needing downtime because I've been going steadily.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't remember February, to be honest. It's all a blur. But
Mm-hmm.
in March, my husband actually went into the hospital very suddenly. We did not expect it. I spent about a week in the hospital with him, running back and forth between like taking care of our cat and being there for him. And it ended up resulting in an amputation, which takes a while to heal,
Mm-hmm.
and meant that he was at home with a lot of medication and a lot of like medical needs and doctor's appointments and things like that that I had to tend to, while also tending to the house and my geriatric cat, which you all love, and myself and my business. And so really the people that were more in the know was my Patreon and then the What the Flux podcast that I do with Joey.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were the people that were like, there was deadlines there that had already paid that I needed to be there for. And so I was. But outside of that, there were things that I just didn't have literal time to do, or energy, really. So there were times when Joey was like, just sit down, please, for a second. Have you taken a shower?
Yeah.
You know? So there was definitely things that, I've been seeing to, tending to. And he is a lot better now. And things are starting to get back to our normal routine again. So that's awesome.
Yep.
But part of this has created lifestyle changes that had to be implemented elsewhere in our life as well. So it's kind of a continuation thing. So that's also something that we're kind of working with on my end. But that's why you haven't seen me as much, guys. That's why I haven't really been making a lot of videos, is because I haven't had time to or energy to. To the extent that Joey was even like, hello? Where are you, bitch? Hello?
And I mean, I've been struggling in this apartment as well, because I mean, we've had a week off from it. We don't know where they are. I'm kind of hoping they've gone. If they have gone now, I will be so happy, but it's probably more likely they've gone on holiday and I'll be disappointed. And that's been an ongoing nightmare for me too. So particularly upstairs, they're into everything you can think that you wouldn't want a neighbor to be into. We're pretty sure they're deal, and they were causing huge amounts of ruckus 3-4 in the morning every night. We were having the police out. The police actually knocked their doors down. They raided them. It was just, I wasn't sleeping. It was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare with these neighbors. And so, like, for both Cris and I, we were both like beyond tired. We were like zombie mode, beyond tired. And it was all throwing up all kinds of shadows as well, because it was definitely like dark goddess workers at the same time. Like this, it was really difficult.
There was definitely working through lessons. And then also like people around me also working through lessons at the same time. And like even the struggle to like hold yourself up and hold others up at the same time, there was a balance that we were searching for in that. So yeah.
But I will say, I mean, thank you, Raw Spirit. Raw Spirit says, I hope things are getting better for you. But to be honest, we're actually feeling like we have turned a corner with this.
Yes.
I had my lowest point, was it over a week ago? Maybe a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And it made me doubt everything in my life for a time there. And it made me very, very sick as well, very, very physically sick. And I was really worried I got the gallstone thing back, which is what happened last time I was super, super stressed, that I basically hospitalized myself last time I was that stressed. I've managed to avoid that this time, fingers crossed, touch wood. But it's made me, and I'm still going through this process of reevaluating everything, of looking where I put my time, looking where I put my energy, looking where I put my emphasis on what really matters to me, what's really important to me. And it really was a rebirthing process that led to this dark goddess rising energy that we wanted to talk to you guys about.
It's also been an element of like looking where you feel like you need to justify as well for both of us.
Yeah. There's been big lessons of who are you when you're not of service to someone else.
Yes.
And that's been because we're both earth signs, like you guys probably know, and being of service, being of use, being helpful to other people kind of drives us. And we're both in like the spiritual business, or whatever you want to call it, because we want to help people, despite what people may or may not say about the spiritual business. But we're here because that's what we want to do. We want to help people. We want to deliver this message. We want to encourage people to think outside the box and see the world a different way. We're very passionate about it. And so when you kind of forced into a position of, yeah, but who are you if nobody gave a shit? Then it was a really hard, and Cris was going through it at the exact same time as me. So we're like, bitch, you know you mean the world to me. And I'm like, bitch, you listening to yourself right now. And it was like back and forth for a bit there, and it was so funny. So the pink wig is a statement of femininity, and it helps me with my anxiety. Somebody came at me for being a woman quite hardcore, and they tried to take me down for being a woman. This is something that happened in the difficult period, and the guy was he's a woman hater. I don't think that we need to go into it any more than that. He just hates women, and he tried to take me down for being a female. He came over from the Become a Living God side of things. He tried to take me down for being a woman. So I was like, all right, if you're gonna fucking bitch about me being there because I'm a woman, then I'm gonna get a pink wig.
Basically. Yeah. Also, you had a video too where you talked about really letting your freak flag fly, like in the face of kind of commercialism in a sense. You were like, no, I'm going to be even more me. Yeah. And me would wear crazy colors on my head. So me is going to do that.
Yep.
That's another element of it too.
Yeah, it definitely is. I love crazy hair. I love like alternative looks. I like it when people play with gothic, but then they like play with the expectation, because I love gothic everything, but I really, really love it when people like play with it. So when people have like the shocking pink hair, or you know, they'll have a very cutesy outfit which is completely skulls, when, you know, I love that kind of playing with it. So that was part of me like coming into my own kind of like, I've been talking about it for a little while. I started off with like rock your own weird, and we had like calling all weirdos, and it's kind of been like the progression of where we're kind of going forward from this point. It definitely has a very dark goddess undertone already, kind of like that you are who you are, so own it. But you don't have to own it to the point where you're trampling on other people, because then you're not even really owning it. So that vibe kind of came in as one of the first undercurrents that kind of led to where we are now, I think. Because Cris and I had talked about that a little bit too.
Yeah. I will say too that's because a lot of people are like, you and Joy are like the same person. But there is one area I know for sure where we kind of divert, and that's the pastel goth thing. I am pretty just monochromatic, like, don't give me frills, don't give me bows, don't give me glitter, just give me skulls and stripes and leave me alone.
I mean, I've got my total goth kind of like.
Oh no, you still have flavors of it. I'm not saying that, but I am saying like you go that step into like the anime cutesy stuff that you love too. And that's not so much my thing. I go more into like the biker chick.
For sure. So there was that kind of you know, all that. I'm not like, my hair's still under everything. I didn't shave it all off and have a Britney moment or anything.
Yeah, it's still there. I promise, guys. I can vouch for that. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Whew, so
yes,
we came from these places. This is what has been happening. That's kind of been what's been happening in the background, and that's why we've been a bit more quiet. I've been a little bit more active in other places than I have been on YouTube. So I have done a little bit of Facebook living here and there. Instagram I've been very active on. Patreon I've been very active on. Although I did get really sick, which was unfortunate for the end of last month. So now I've got to try and get twice as much content out this beginning of this month. But, you know. So we kind of also had this spiritual rebirthing that's happened to Cris and I and other people around us, to be honest. Like, we're taking everyone with us. Like, come on, over the shoulder. Don't care if you don't want to come
all
with
aboard
us.
the train.
All about the Dark Goddess train. Choo-choo. Yeah. Molly will attest to this with her. Have you seen her amazing Baba Yaga stuff, guys? Have you seen it? It's amazing. It's amazing. It's beautiful, beautiful artwork. And so I think we can talk a little bit about the rituals that we've been doing lately without going into too much depth, without being too specific.
Sure.
Yeah. There we go. All aboard, no joke. Molly's coming along with us.
Yes. Molly.
And so we've been engaging in private ritual and spiritual and a lot of channeling, and spell work and ritual as a result.
Yes.
And it came to a head last night, which is when the spirits basically turned around and went, bitches.
That's a pun. You guys don't get it, but I do. That's a pun. Good job.
Your bitches need to live stream about this, basically.
Yeah.
And so we're here and we're doing it because we were told. So we're here.
Because you tried disobeying them.
Oh, here's a funny story. Cris tried disobeying them the end of last week because they were saying to me, you need to tell her to rest. So Joey told her to rest. Joey told Cris to rest 3 times. And I was like, Cris, you need to rest though. And she was like, okay, I'm resting. And then she's like, but this idea though, and we could do it like this. And I'm like,
I don't really remember it like that though.
Yeah, you fucking knew. And I was like, look, open a Trello board, put down what we've got, and then go rest. And because I was excited about the things that we've got coming, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know what I mean? But the spirit's telling you to rest. And so Cris was like, okay, I'm doing it. What about this though? And I heard the spirit screaming up, and I'm like, dudes, like, I've tried. Like, if you wanted to rest, you're going to have to do something. And did they do something? They knocked Cris out the next day.
Yeah. Lack of voice, didn't feel good. Just wiped, like energetically just wiped. I slept all the times that I was allowed to sleep that day. So yeah, but I feel way better now and way more energized. Back like in it mentally, so that's good. And I have my paper and my pen so I can note, because #2 Earth Signs doing a live.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah, where's your pen and paper? Come on, it's been that long. You're not even prepared. Well, what are you doing? This is your channel.
Excuse you, I'm a Virgo. I've got pen and paper nearby at all times. How dare you? Honestly,
we can fight.
We can what with pens? Yeah. Welcome back to Cris and Joey Go Live. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that ritual and what that ritual meant for us, and kind of why. It's very difficult for me to tell you guys like why we're at this point, because there's been so many threads that have come together up until this point, which have been like, you guys need to go forward this way. And we knew that we needed to go forward this way anyway, because Cris and I have been talking about writing a book together for some time, and we opened a Trello board. Yeah. And we've opened a Trello board so we can put all our ideas in as we're going forward. Like if we ever get inspired and we want like, oh, I want this in, or I want this quote in, or oh, this means something, then it can go in there. And doing the kind of like the very beginnings of that idea forming. But we had all these roots come to this point, and then we had this ritual. So this ritual came off the back of some stuff that I've had to do lately. I was confronted on a number of different counts by people telling me who I was, and not in a good way. Like, I had people who I thought I was closer with than I clearly was, telling me that I was a bad person. And I'm just going to tell you guys flat out right now, I had them accuse me of cursing people, and it was bullshit. It was utter bullshit. And I was like, firstly, the main people that are accusing me, I'm like, you don't mean enough to me, sorry. Like, do you know how much energy and effort and really being angry cursing properly takes?
I mean, again, we just talked about going through a time where it was really smart to think about like the value of the energy that you put into things, the time you spend on things, and what are really your priorities here.
Yeah.
What are things that are necessity to you? And you know what? Even beyond that, like being happy and anything, like that's a necessity too. So,
yeah.
With
So,
that in mind,
yeah,
while you're talking about this, like
absolutely,
why?
and it all got kind of like, it was part of this Dark Goddess lesson. It just totally was. It was like, are you going to believe what these people say about you?
Yes.
And I was like, I really sat with it. Like, I really sat in it. Like, I like really sat in it. I don't know how else to say this to you guys. Like, I let it all seep into every pore of my being, and then looked at all the words and tried to understand it from the other people's perspectives or whatever, and then looked at how I thought about myself. And I got to the point where I just rejected it, because I was like, I have issues. I have scars, emotional scars, mental scars, whatever you want to, I have wounds, if you like.
Yeah.
And I acknowledge them. And to be honest, for the most part, I talk to you guys about these wounds all the time. I had my chart done properly. What's the lady's name again?
Dawn Champagne.
Thank you.
She's wonderful. I love her. If you guys are looking to have a reading,
and
the goddess energy.
She brought to my attention, like, the thing at the pinnacle of my chart was Chiron. Is it Chiron? Chiron, the wounded healer.
Chiron?
Chiron. Is it? Okay.
That's how I
always pronounce him wrong for some reason. And to be honest, when I looked at it, it made a huge amounts of sense to me.
Some people say Chiron as well, so okay. I don't
know. Because what I do for a lot of my spiritual stuff is I'm like, this is my pain, this is my wound, this is what happened to me, this is the difficulty, this is what I've been going through, and here it is for you guys. This is what it is. And then I'll go through a process of, and this is how I alchemized it, this is what I looked at in terms of like a psychological perspective, this is what I did in terms of spiritual work, this is what I did in terms of spirit work, channeling, etc. And I will kind of like show you the alchemizing process, or talk about it, and then be like, and then this is where I am today, and this is like the next step along that path. And so it was interesting in the process of all of this. The same guy, by the way, that came at me for being a woman, he was accusing me of creating more victims in terms of what I do with my spirituality. He was accusing me of purposefully trying to make people into victims. And I sat with that for about 2 seconds, and then I was like, yeah, fuck off. Like, what I want for people is, I'm like, this is pain, and I felt this way, and it's ugly, and it's difficult, and it sucks, and you can have all these reactions and all these feelings, and you're not alone in that. That's why I do what I do. Do I tell people to then not do the work? Not for a damn second. We're earth signs, for goodness sake. We're all about doing the work. So I've sat with all these different accusations of, like, I would curse children. Never in a million years would I ever want harm to innocent kids. Never. Like, it's so like against who I am as, like, on the inside. It's not even funny. I don't even believe in cursing family members. Like, they're innocent of what it is that whatever beef you've got between you and an individual, for the most part, the family members are innocent of all of that. They might have something to say about it because they're family, but it's not their actions and whatever. And I view baneful magic in a very different way, which I haven't fully been able to express yet, because I'm supposed to be doing that for Become a Living God, and all this nonsense has kind of thrown me off talking about it, because I'm like, the minute I start talking about it, they're going to be like, aha, she did it. Look, she talks about it. Just because I don't see it, you know, the same way a lot of people see baneful magic. I think there is value in the poison path because it teaches you about yourself more than anything else, if you want a quick overview of how I feel about it. And I feel that if you would take actions in life to protect yourself from an individual, then you should take actions in the magical realm to protect yourself against people. And I honestly feel like you can make arguments that most forms of magic are baneful anyway. You can make that argument. It's all about perception. It's all about how you see magic. It's all about where the line is. You can argue that love magic can be completely baneful. You can argue that healing work can be baneful, because if you're interfering with somebody who didn't ask for your interference, and then you're stopping their healing process, you can make arguments for that being baneful in a roundabout kind of way. So I'm kind of like drawing on all these subjects quite quickly, but basically the where we came together in that is that it was like forcing me to be like, who am I? Who do I believe myself to be? And do I need to take on board these opinions? And no, I don't. No, I don't. And I've always been a little bit too aware of what people think of me. And I know where it comes from, and I know why I feel insufficient, and I feel like an outsider a lot of the time. I know where these wounds, these shadows come from. But knowing where they come from and then moving through the door and being like, I have to get to a place where I don't do this anymore, or at least change the way I interact with these energies now, and really like dark goddess it, like be like, it's not about arrogance, but it is about knowing worth, and it is about knowing where we put our energy, and what we choose to believe about ourselves, and how we choose to, again, alchemize these situations. And for me, it's been incredibly illuminating, this doorway. It's all been about light, which is very uncomfortable for me because I'm much more of a dark goddess energy. Yeah. And it's all been very much like, look at all this stuff brought to light. Look at all this illumination. Look at yourself in the harshest light possible. Be blinded by these opinions of yourself. Now, what do you think? And it was a very interesting kind of alchemization through light. It was like burning away some of, like, there was no like holding your hands out in front of your face, like I refused to deal with it. It was like burning light. It was really it was harsh, like light lessons can be. But when you came through that, I know who I am. I know what my worth is. And I've said in a few different places, my mantra right now is, I'll be standing here in this light because I've got nothing to hide. So do you want to talk about your shadows before we move forward?
I think you touched on one of the biggest ones, which is kind of like your own rough edges hitting against people, or people versus people running into your edges. And I think there's a difference between drops mic, exactly. She's like, your turn.
We're dark goddessing, isn't that what we do?
Yeah. But yeah, I think a big part of mine has been, when is it the difference between I'll stop leaning on my desk. When is it the difference between where you're just kind of being in the world and you're being, and it kind of hits somebody else's, shadows or lessons that they're going through, whatever you want to call it, wounds, in a sense, versus like when they're just running around the world, kind of like a Roomba hitting in walls as they're trying to vacuum, like just looking for them. Because sometimes there are cases where people want to fight because they want to fight because it gives them a feeling of like victoriousness or justification, or at least a confirmation, because sometimes that limbo space can be hard for people. So they want a yes or a no. And if they think that they're going to be able to get a no more often, then no, and let's fight about it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been a lot of that for me on my side is what is shining and being who I am, and people taking that as like, oh, you're too bright, versus them just not wanting any, you know what I mean, like around them, because of their own taste. And I think that's two different things. And there was a point where I was like, you know what, I'm done rubbing, sanding down. I'm done rubbing my edges. That's something entirely different. That's a whole different lesson. No, at what point, are you done sanding down your edges, making everything smooth, when you don't need to? You were this way for a reason. Mm-hmm. And some of those edges you like. Mm-hmm. Some of those edges don't need to be healed. Some of those edges are you and part of your power. Like when we talk about shadow work in the past, you guys have seen Joey and I talk about, like, oftentimes that's what your strength is. The thing that you're fighting ends up being one of your things that you're really, really good at. Mm-hmm. And, so there's been a lot of lessons around that. And for me, it was obviously in the past, I've talked about voice stuff and being comfortable with my voice and singing and such. I cried on a live, I think it's on this channel, with Joey. You can go look at that if you want to see me sobbing. But basically, I was shown from a very early age, when you kind of let it all out, people can get jealous and people take away what you love a lot of times. And it kind of worked its way into multiple places in my life. And this whole kind of rebirth that I've been through, or death of its own, has shown me those places in very like bright high beam light. Like, I am acutely aware of many places, many roots that have kind of wound itself around other things in my life. And that's why I do that. And so with that, I am working on a course that kind of came from the evolution of this thought process, and like talking to Joey about things and venting. And one day I was venting and I said something and I was like, oh, that word. Yes, that, follow that. So that's a whole other thing. But there is an element of being raw and being you and being unapologetic about it. I know Kellyanne has even mentioned some of that stuff lately, who, I love you, girl. But she always has kind of her thumb on, I guess Joey would call the witch pulse, where, she seems to like pick that up at the same time. And I fucking love her. But yeah, it's definitely an element of being unapologetically here, standing in your light and not being afraid of what's to come. And with everything that's happened for me over the last few months, there's been a lot of shaky ground. There's been a lot of, am I enough? And it's hard to hold space sometimes when you're also like, can I even hold space right now? But I will say, I will never stop being amazed that when it comes time to step into sacred space, like ritual place, that mindset snaps and you're instantly there. And when that person needs you, you're fucking there. So that's a thing. That is something that I've learned. Like, no, you can rely on that. Don't worry about that ever. And don't take it for granted, obviously. But so there was a power to this in this death, because it has made me acutely aware of the things that I need to let die and the things that need to continue with me in this next life, if you will. Which kind of brings us to what we're talking about. Right, Joey?
Yeah, I'm just going to ask the question that Miss Abyssum asked, because I think it's a good one. What about the opinions of others when they sound positive but are inaccurate? Can we hide behind the comfort of false assumption because it's easier than authenticity? So,
well, I mean, from the way you worded that, you already know the answer to it.
yes. Yeah. I will say that as I've been working through some of this shadow stuff, it kind of applies to that, because I have shadows around opinions and things like this. So the first thing is, I don't ever think I choose the easy option. Like, I don't think I've ever done that. And especially if I know that, to me, one answer is ethically or morally right to my mind, I will never choose the other option. Although that does create a problem within expecting the harder option to be the right option, which is not always the case. Sometimes we can be our own worst enemies and make life more difficult than we need it to be. But I dealt with some shadows of sisterhood going through this, and what the motivations of other women were in particular. And it's a long-standing shadow for me. And it's a long-standing shadow because I got brought up in an environment where my mother just told me, you can't trust women. They'll always be after your man. They'll always be out to tear you down. There'll always be someone younger and prettier, like, coming up behind you, ready to take your spot. And like, my mother just instilled it in me from like word go that, you know, you can't trust women. And sadly, I've had experiences which backed that up. Like, quite early on in my teenage years, I had experiences like that backed it up, where women went after my guy, and like, I confronted one of the women that did this, and she was like, because I could take him, so I did, was her response. And I've seen it, and it's difficult to deal with, but you have to get to the point in yourself where you realize it don't fucking matter what they're doing. Even if they are doing that, it matters what you believe, and whether you think you're worth being with, if you're talking in terms of partnership, if you believe that you're worth monogamy, if that's what you want, or you're worth trust, or you're worth loyalty, or you're worth these things, because
or if
that's
you
where it
believe that you're
starts.
unworthy of it in the same account. So it's a flip side too.
Yeah. And so that's how I had to come through it. And we actually, with the What the Flux podcast, we talked about sisterhood for 2 months, which is what we're doing now with the podcast. We're spending 2 months on one topic instead, with the big journey. And this journey, like, had Cris and I in tears, and we created it.
Legit, like, I'm doing the soundscape for it, and I'm like, Joey.
And it was so moving that we actually both sent it out on our mailing lists.
Yeah.
Because we were like, the world needs to hear this, because it moved both of us so strongly. Of course, we checked in with the What the Flux podcast members, because they obviously pay for the
and
ongoing.
They were all super awesome and supportive of it. So.
They were all like, yeah, this needs to be out in the world. So we went ahead and mailed that out. And that was a little bit of dark goddess work for me too, because that was kind of like, is the dark goddess really as solitary as sometimes they're made out to be? Because when you look at dark goddess energies, quite often you think of them as being loners, like, and that's not necessarily the case. Like, everything is interconnected, like we talk about, through the spiritual ecosystem. All roots run through all other roots. So that was a part of sisterhood that kind of came in with dark goddess energy to me, which kind of was like, you don't have to be on your own. You don't have to be alone in this. You don't have to be distrustful of other people. You don't have to be distrustful of other women. But where it really starts is on the inside of who you believe that you are. And I honestly feel like that's a seed for Dark Goddess Rising. It was like, self-worth was the beginning of something that had been pulling from many different directions for a long time. And kind of moved both Cris and I and others who know who they are. I'm always hesitant to be like, this person and that person, in case they don't want us to say. But tribe, shall we say. And it's really kind of pushed us into a new era for me, because for me especially, I'm like, I don't want to be the outsider, and I don't want to feel like the outsider. And it was interesting to me, actually. I'm going to touch on what Jesse just said about the Morgan and about women, because I had this moment which blew me away recently of confirmation again through the Morgan, which is some women who I don't necessarily know went to the Morgan retreat, and they took my poetry and they spoke my words in honor of the Morgan in the Morgan temple.
Wow.
And I had one of those dark goddess blown away moments, like, oh my, wow. Because that's not a spot that I feel I can go into. I'd had confrontation with at least one, maybe two people who kind of like go there quite frequently. And so I didn't feel like I belonged in that space. Again, outsider syndrome. I sometimes run into the recon way of thinking about the Morrigan, and I don't think that way. So there's like a divide there. So the fact that daughters, priestesses of the Morrigan took my words, took my poetry without me knowing anything about it into the temple of the Morrigan, and I was like, this is an honor that we can do the Morrigan. And I was like blown away by it. I was like, what? Like, and that was a connection through sisters that I didn't even know existed until they like tagged me on Instagram. I was like, what? Wow. And that reminded me of, you might not think you belong somewhere, but you do, because the Morrigan says you belong here. She's acting through the hearts and minds of other people.
Well, and there's also an element of like, you might not think that you create change. You might not think that you don't plant any seeds, but you plant more than you're aware of. I think we forget too often about that.
Yeah.
And when something like that shows us it back, it's like, whoa, like, I'm just worried if I drink enough water right now and
I'll be a tree.
you know? Yeah.
So that was one of these moments recently, which was, it was again a light lesson for me, which was interesting because it was like a look kind of thing. And I was like, I've been having a moment of like, if you work with the Morrigan, possibly other dark goddesses too, but the Morrigan definitely does this. So the Morrigan was in one of her retreat stages, because the Morrigan goes through these cycles of being like in your face and then like withdrawing like right back. And it was in one of those withdrawing moments, and I was struggling with all this shadow work that I was going through. And then just to have that moment, I cried. I'm not going to lie. When I found out about it, I cried. And I was like, it was a confirmation moment of everything that is within me. And there it was without of me too. So it was beautiful. And that is a large part of why I decided to go ahead and put all my poetry into a book and write some rituals to go with it, which is actually dark goddess focused. So I was hoping I was going to have a copy of the book to show you guys today, but it's not arrived yet. And I will say that Molly did some beautiful cover work for that. So just thank Molly again. She didn't have to. She just was like, here you go. And I was like, ah!
Molly is a BAMF, and we love her.
And it has the moth on it, which is a big part of my Morrigan practice. If you guys have been with me, then you know. If you don't, the moth is not technically a given correspondence in the mythology that still exists, because we've lost a lot of the mythology. But the moth was something that was part of my personal gnosis with Babe in particular. And it made a lot of sense to me. So the fact that that moth is right there, that Molly created it, and that book is going to be out pretty soon. It's all done and ready to go. And as long as the proof copy comes back and it's good, we're going to move ahead. And that's, again, a dark goddess thing, which is part of this Dark Goddess Rising. And there's going to be work from Cris and I separately, and then work from Cris and I together. I will tell you that I have worked with Lilith. Somebody just asked. And interestingly enough, Lilith and another goddess make up a big part of a Dark Goddess course that I have coming soon.
Yup. With beautiful sigils. Just saying, because I've seen them. I get the sneak peeks, guys.
Yeah. Cris knows all of Taurus even frigging out. Cris is, And I will say that I dedicated the Dark Goddess book to 3, by no means all, but 3 of the women that I consider sisters, which is my actual sister, my actual blood sister, Cris, and Molly. And there are other women out there that I consider sisters, but I felt like it was really important coming off the back of this sisterhood energy, and this kind of like owning that, where I am now is not just because of me. It is because of me, but it is also because of the interactions, the friendships, the support of other people in my life, particularly other women in my life. And I felt
you can be individual and you can also be part of a community. They're not mutually exclusive. Like you can be both. And that's fine. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other.
Yeah.
And unfortunately in this society, a lot of times people think that we do. Like a lot of times people like to put things in a very like stark kind of dichotomy where no, it's one or the other and that's it, and there's nothing else in between. And that's not necessarily the case. Oftentimes it's the in-between that we need. That's the balance point. So yeah, be an individual, be yourself, be you, whatever that means for you. But also, I mean, there are times where, it's okay to need help, to need a hug, to need a soundboard, to need someone to give you like that beginning of the string when you're trying to undo a knot and you just can't find the end of that damn string. And then you're like, here, somebody else work on this for a second. Because sometimes you need, as we would say at work, looking for things like, where I used to work in retail, like sometimes you just need a new set of eyes. And those eyes come in and they see it instantly.
That's such a Persephone analogy. So Caitlin just said a field of flowers. Flowers may group together and look all the same, but each one is actually unique.
Oh, yeah.
So that's kind of a Persephone vibe in there. I'll talk quickly about Lilith, seeing as it was asked. So Lilith has come to me about empowering women quite a lot. She stands with the broken. She stands with the rejected. She stands with the women who get a bad rep and they don't deserve it. Like other people gossip about them and like pick at them. Those kinds of women. And Lilith is very much about strength, raw, emotional and spiritual strength a lot of the time. And being who you are, even when other people are calling you names or whatever. So it kind of fits with this vibe that we've kind of been talking about pretty well, actually. And when I channeled her, which I've done a few times, the first time was about her temple, and her temple was literally like black ash in a circle, and it was meant to be like volcanic ash, and it was like it was desolate on the surface, but what it actually was like the most fertile soil known to man, and anything could grow in it. So you know how her flower is like lotus, which is like things that can grow out of the mud and the muck and the murk and the struggle. Lilith definitely has that energy of you can do whatever you want to do, and don't you let anyone stop you. She's a little bit more confrontational than some of them, although they've all got a backbone, let's face it. But she definitely has a try me kind of vibe to Lilith. She definitely does. And she's unapologetic, but she supports all women. So I never understand the women who try and use Lilith's name to like dog other women, because I'm like, that's not gonna work. Like Lilith is against dogging on other women. Aw, I hope it was a good cry. I made Raw Spirit cry.
No.
So I never understood that, because she's definitely much more about like together we are stronger. And she's definitely like head of the weirdo army type of thing. Like, we're all weird. Come, we're all weird. We're all going to do this together. We're all of value. We're all of worth. It doesn't matter what those arseholes over there say about us. We know, and we're going to show the world. That's kind of Lilith vibe.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I think there's something to be said too, like in the uniqueness of all of this. We all have kind of our own duties as healers, our own kind of things that we do as not even as healers. I hate to say that word, because that word can be so kind of boxed in how people think about it. Because really, like, there's a lot of ways. When I was little, I always thought of healer as like, the cleric, because I played way too much Dungeons and Dragons, basically. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that the healer is a lot of different things, and you can heal in many different ways, many. And so, I mean, even looking to the goddesses and stuff, and how people kind of divided into dark goddess, which Joey and I, are usually like, dark goddess. So there is that element of that.
There definitely is, yeah.
But even within that, there's certain ways that you receive healing here, and there's certain ways that you receive healing here. And it doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It doesn't mean that you may not need both of them at some point in your life, or all of them at once at some point. But so just as that, I think we all have our own things that we do, and our own challenges to get through those things, our own kind of wounded healer moments to work through those, to figure out how our stuff works. And I think there's an element in that we are trying to remember how we were kind of born in, if that makes sense. We're trying to remember that, and in the process, we're kind of picking up the pieces of self and putting them back together. So we're kind of remembering to pause member.
Yes, I see what you did there. She's leading back into the ritual, which I completely sidetracked from earlier.
Yep, I am.
It's not even subtle. I'm just going to drink my water. Like, okay then.
So, with this, it's kind of collecting the pieces of ourself, and like the story of La Loba. If any of you have read Women Who Run with Wolves, it's a remarkable book, and I highly recommend it if you haven't. We talk about it a lot. I love the author anyway. Pretty much anything she does is gold to me. But there is an element in this that it's a duty to ourselves. It's a duty to the death process, to take these pieces, take these lessons that Joey and I were talking about, like with that phase that we've just gone through, and kind of collect them and sing to them over the fire and get to know them, and look at them in the eye, in the bright light of that fire, and kind of go, does this need to be in my body? Does this need to be remembered, or does this need to kind of be left to the wayside? And that kind of leads us into what we were talking about with death and the lessons there, and dark goddess energy, and the rising of such. Joy?
So we were performing ritual, and it was very interesting, because what kind of happens, I don't know whether you guys realize this about Cris and I or not, but Cris and I both channel spirits. And when we get together, if one side or the other decides that they want their messages, they don't care. They'll just fucking like download into one of us or both of us. And we will kind of like get a back and forth. We'll both get images. We'll get like a story between us. We use cards and all the rest of it. So this happens quite a lot. Just because we naturally sync energy wise, plus shared ancestry and whatnot, we're pretty sure. And definitely past life stuff, we are definitely sure for that. And yesterday was such a day where they just slapped me upside the head and were like, stop.
I have never been that cold. Like, I don't know if you guys have ever felt spirit around you to the extent that like you feel like you could breathe fog. But that's what that felt like. I could breathe fog.
Oh, thank you, my love. Ooh, I have coffee.
Yes.
Thank you.
We'll keep him that one.
Yeah. Yes. So they slapped me upside the head. They were like, I was like, I had cards out in front of me. I was like, Cris, what is going on? There's like this urgency going on.
I'm like, what's going on? It hasn't hit me yet.
Yeah.
And they're like, it will. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, because she said, it's not hit me yet. And I heard, it gonna. Any minute now, you wait. And she was like, oh my God. Like, she was freezing cold. So we were doing the prep work to ritual work before trying to figure out what the spirits were trying to tell us. What kind of dark goddess energy was going on. We did have dark gods there yesterday before he hits me. We had a dark god there yesterday as well. And he was very involved.
That was kind of something too with the sisterhood that we touched on as well, of the fact
it's not
that
just women. Yeah.
It's not. Sisters, feminine, like they touch everything. And honestly,
we all come from the womb.
Well, and when you break the word down, hood is seen as to protect or to uphold, to hold sacred. And so it doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a sister. It means that that's important to you.
Kitty's doing good.
Oh, yes. Kitty is sassy as ever.
Kissy is sassy as fuck, yeah. She got into trouble last night, as a side note, right? We'd gone to bed and we were asleep, and I woke up because I heard this noise. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And also, somebody else, not me, left the door off the latch the other day, and I woke up and it'd been off the latch all night. And in this neighborhood, that ain't good. And I was like, oh my God. So then I woke up last night like, oh my God, what's that noise? Did he leave the door off the latch? Fuck. No, it was the cat trying to get into bags to tear open food that we hadn't opened. Like, he'd left a bag of chocolate and she was trying to tear through bags to get at it. And I was like, cat. This is a complete side note. But yeah, so that's a complete aside to the ritual magic story. So back in it. So we were looking at what these messages were, and they were telling us about some things that people who have come after me and mine in the past were up to. And it was technically, I mean, it was kind of to do with this, but not really. And I was like, I was having one of those moments like, what do you want us to do? Like, because the situation that they were talking about was nothing to do with us.
Right. This is something else. But why are you telling us?
Yeah. And like, I mean, we were protecting ourselves anyway.
Sharon clocked out early, but why are you telling me?
Yeah. And it was basically like a duty as a death priestess is kind of like how it came through. Like, this isn't your doing, but you can set it right. And it was a weird feeling. I mean, I definitely understand why the gods and goddesses wanted assistance.
There's an element of like, okay, so like we're going to take it back to work for a second, right? So when I worked retail, there was a saying, right? So when you see a spill and you walk by it, yeah, you may not be as guilty as a person who left the spill and walked away, but there is a responsibility there, because if someone else comes along and slips on that, they got hurt because you didn't take that opportunity.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, they could watch where they're going too, but especially in tile with slippery floors like that, it's easy to miss.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of we're all in this together. We're all a balancing act. So like, even though you didn't do it, this isn't about blame. This is about like the good of the whole. This is about kind of honoring the thing in this situation, for instance. We're not honoring the retail floor, but I'm just saying, you get what I mean. We could, I guess.
Oh, holy milk. Thy hath spilt thy bound.
Right, exactly, Wolfraven. There's an essence of like passing the buck, and it's like, how many times does that get passed around before someone just cleans it up?
Yeah.
How long are we going to let this be there and have the ability to potentially hurt someone or have hurt without tending to this wound? Are we going to sit and let it fester?
And then there was a dishonoring in it as well. There was definitely a pain, but there was like somebody had basically dishonored an element of necromancy, of death, that they should never have dishonored. And because Go on.
Yeah. I think that there's an element in this too that expands even beyond death specifically. We're talking about this today because that's high.
Yeah.
You met us. But there's an element of this that goes in with everything. As a magic user, I think also, like as someone who is consciously weaving things. In the foreground of their mind, you know what you're doing. It's kind of our job to look for those things, to help with those things. We are the mediators. We're the medial people who are negotiating, who are helping balance stuff. And because of that, there is an element of like, not only am I now responsible for who I am, there's an element of being responsible for what I see. And helping where I can, and also knowing when it's not my damn business and maybe someone else needs to help. Maybe I'm not the filter that you need for this Brita picture, baby.
Definitely was yesterday. We weren't given us a choice.
Right. So just wanted to say that in there too, that this goes beyond even this scope. We're kind of looking through this lens specifically, but this goes into everything really. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Joy.
Hello to Richard, by the way, who just came in and said hello.
Oh, hi.
So we were downloading messages, we were channeling, we were getting a vibe, we were getting an image between us. We had a morning goddess, which is a new one for me. She was very upset. Heavy. And so we partook of ritual, and the ritual was literally to provide healing and energetic nourishment to those that needed it, who had been wronged, basically.
To provide love and honor.
And to set the scales back in balance, kind of thing, and return what needed to be returned. And it really was one of those moments of, this needs to happen before you can go through the next door, which is this live stream, which they had instructed they wanted, but they wanted the ritual first. And it was again one of these confirmation moments, because it was like, we see. Kitty cat just opened the door and came through. And it was kind of like connection. It was honoring parts of the connection of the spiritual ecosystem, even though technically we hadn't dishonored them. And I think it's a really important lesson, because the world that we live in, especially right now, is like, oh, well, that's someone else's pain. Oh, well, that's someone else's problem. Oh, well, it's not affecting me and mine right now, so I'm not getting involved because I don't need to, and I don't want to draw attention to myself. Except that, like, by ignoring it, it's like the quote that, all evil needs to succeed is for good men and women to do nothing. And I've always felt like apathy and inaction are more problematic than anything. Like, you can take an action, you can get it wrong, you can fuck up and then make up for that mistake at the later date. But apathy,
it tends to even be problematic to the person who is passing it by, honestly, because I mean, yeah, there's the greater scale, but even very immediately, it tends to be an issue because you become kind of complacent with it, and then you kind of forget your own power and your own ability to change. Or affect change. And so it's like, walking by a field and then never actually like digging the hole for the seed. You'll never realize how many you can plant.
There's a kitty cat, and I'm just seeing if she wants to come say
sassy.
hello.
Probably not, because she's sassy.
Probably not, because she's sassy. Hi. No, you're going to be sassy.
Of course you are.
I told you.
Yeah. She's like, I'm not going to do what you want to do when I want to do it.
Mine will let me pull him up, but he just death glares everyone like, yeah. Anyway.
I will say, Tracy, that almost every one of those goddesses is going to be in the Dark Goddess book that I'm going to be releasing, just saying.
Persephone, Morgana Faye.
And it's going to be a series, by the way. There's going to be more. Because I've actually channeled 2 different goddesses since I finished that book.
So here's the thing, though, Amethyst Mix. She says if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. I disagree with that, and I'll say why. Because I feel like that's pointing the finger still. We're still talking about blame.
Yeah.
Pointing a finger at someone instead of cleaning up the spill still means there's a fucking spill. Like, just clean the spill. and then like people worry about their damn self, ideally. Now, there are times where you kind of gotta do more than that. But I think the first place we should go, instead of being like, well, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem, is instead we should be like, well, let's make the solution happen first. Yeah. And then, you know, we can figure out like how can we prevent this from happening again if we can.
Or encourage other people to be part of the solution, at least.
Yeah, because that also doesn't really make anyone feel like they can be part of the solution, honestly. Yeah. Like, to label someone as the problem causes a lot of other problems, too.
Yeah, a lot of the problems in the world that come between people is the us versus them mentality. And for me, a big part of my shadow work recently was like, even when I'm in pain, trying to see the other side, like the other person's pain as well, rather than seeing them as against me and the enemy and they were wrong. I tried to be like, okay, well, where did my actions cause pain in the other person? Or what is the pain that is rubbing into my pain? And because usually when people are arguing and when people are at odds or whatever, there is a lot of reasons. There's a lot of back and forth depending on the circumstance. There is very rarely a situation where you didn't do anything. It's possible. Like, some people take the umph with you just because of who you are or what you represent. Like the guy that we mentioned earlier who took umph with me because I have a vagina, and like, what do you want me to do about it? Sorry, I'm born this way, happy this way. So
Okay.
And so there are those circumstances do occur, but even when you've only done a little bit, like, you can own that to yourself. And you have to be careful, though, because you have to be careful that you do not excuse the behavior of other people in this process. And it's
again, not, black and white isn't the answer. It's kind of a gray area.
Because at the same time, you're not like, I'm a doormat, you can do whatever you want, you can walk all over me, and then I'm more spiritual than you. Because no, this is dark goddess work. You need to have that backbone, and backbone has come up a few times now, so I'm guessing that's a lesson going forward. I'm going to write backbone down for later. And having a spine, taking a stand. But taking a stand and having a backbone doesn't equate to arrogance. It doesn't equate to aggression. It doesn't equate to trying to kind of like throw people down under the bus. Or comparison. Like, comparison is the problem, I think. That's a good question, Pixie. Do you feel pain can be misinterpreted as fear when trying to understand others? I think fear and pain are probably shadows of one another. They're probably quite often integrated with one another. They're not always the same thing, though. They're quite, I think you'll find them together most of the time, particularly. So if somebody has been through a painful experience and then they judge everybody else by the person who caused them that painful experience, so somebody has been attacked by a pit bull and then they hate all pit bulls for the rest of their life, you know, that's taking like pain to a place of fear. And you know, yeah, Gothic, not even gonna lie, Chris has been like, we need to do that. We need like
yeah, but I need somebody else to do it, because that would take a lot of time, man. To go through. And for those of you viewing this later, Gothic Arcana said someone needs to make a compilation of all the dance/song breaks with Joey and Cris videos.
I think it actually shows the live chat now, like after the fact.
Oh, does? Oh, sweet.
I think so
it's been a while since I've done this, guys. I did not know that. That's awesome. Good. I always wanted them to do that anyway.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense when we're reading back later. People are like, what? So it was interesting because we kind of had these lessons of who are you? Who are you in spite of what people say? who are you when nobody's looking, which is basically what authenticity is supposed to be. Although something with authenticity is that the problem with authenticity now is it's getting thrown around as an aggression, like a finger blaming word now. Now, for me, authenticity, the only person who's in charge of your authenticity is you, and you're only in charge of your authenticity. So whilst you can avoid situations and people that give you a bad vibe authentically, it doesn't mean you can go around being like, this person doesn't know what they're fucking talking about. This person's not real. This person's not this person, because what are you doing? You're only reflecting yourself and your own shadows and all the rest of it. Hi,
Legit.
Denise.
Yeah.
So there was definitely that vibe. There was the vibe of interconnectedness versus the individual, which is something that we went through with the podcast particularly. That was a big driving force of like, where has sisterhood got warped was one, like where has the warping gone and where has that taken away from what we felt like sisterhood actually was. Again, hence why we released the journey to the populace, at least mailing lists at large. And we kind of arrived here through the ritual, through the service, through the who we are, who they are, who the spirits are, like all of this coming together. We arrived here. And it's actually kind of exciting for me because for the first time in a little while, I feel like at least I know where I'm going. And that's been something which has felt a little bit absent of late, like direction and feeling where the direction is, because it's just been overwhelming in terms of like what's going on in the world, what's going on energetically, what's going on spiritually. All of it has just been like bombardment is what it's felt like. And I know we're in the midst of all these retrogrades, which everybody's freaking out about, but so far I'm just spotting what's happening in retrograde. I'm like, well, this dick measuring is definitely Mars in retrograde. That's definitely a thing right now. I'm more powerful than you. I'm more powerful than you. I'm like, swords at dawn, prove it, sure, whatever.
Swords at dawn.
Swords at dawn, know what I mean? Know what I mean? Wink, wink, nudge,
Swords.
nudge.
Yes, got it.
Just get them out so we can see. Just if you're gonna dick measure, just slap it out on the table and let's have a look. Anyway,
that's early. I'll be in bed. You guys have fun.
Yes.
Yeah. There was something I wanted to touch on though. A minute. I went through something. Continue talking. I'll remember it.
Okay. And so the retrograde is actually a really good time for introspection in all ways. And so it is a really good time to look at who you are and where you'd like to go going forward. And that's kind of the vibe that I've gotten now. I've actually gotten to a place where I'm pretty excited about it because I've looked at all the things that I know that I'm not. And now I want to explore who I am and where I want to grow from that point and the people that I want to grow with. Oh, coffee burp, excuse me. And, some of the amazing people around me, and it's mostly women, I'm going to be honest. There are some amazing guys around me too. But it's really nice for me that there are some amazing women around me. Because it feeds my rejection of that shadow that, all women are out to get you and all women are out to take what's yours. So the fact that there are women around me and we're all growing as our own, like we said earlier, our own unique flower, our own unique blossom, that we're all part of one garden is really exciting for me. And Molly doesn't know that I've said this to Cris yet, but I'm going to say it here sorry. I was talking to Cris because I'm going to throw Cris under the bus here, but one of her shadows.
Hold on. Do I need to get my pads? Hold on. What's happening here? Do I need a helmet? Where's my wolf hat?
Cris has difficulty accepting help from other people.
Lots of it, yes. I love to help everybody, but I have a really hard time asking for it.
Mm-hmm. And I said to Cris at the time, I was like, look what Molly just gave me, this beautiful artwork for my book, right?
Yes.
there are different ways I could take that, and how I chose to take that, how I felt was, oh my God, this is amazing. Thank you so much. That's going to help. It looks beautiful. I know I can't draw, so that's a talent from somebody I consider a sister, kind of adding to the energy of the whole of the book that I've produced, and I'm really grateful, and I was really happy with it. On the flip side, if I was engaging in shadow, I could have been like, shit, all people are going to see is this amazing artwork, and my words aren't going to measure up. But I didn't go there because I didn't even think to go there, which I was really proud of myself, because we'd been through all these sisterhood lessons and growing from it. And I said that to Cris at the time. So I was like, it doesn't take away, it adds. And under Dark Goddesses, I really feel that that's a huge lesson right now. Like, you don't have to take away from other people, because if you're trying to take away from other people, or other people are trying to take away from you, then you're completely missing the freaking point. Like, you are you, and you're the only you that there can be.
Yeah.
And the interconnectedness doesn't take away from the individual, just the same way that the individual doesn't have to take away from the interconnectedness.
Which does remind me of something I was going to say.
Good. We got there.
So it was actually a comment that jogged my mind on it, and it was from, here it is, 75 Guineable. I hope I said your name right. I'm sorry. I have no idea. Anyway, she said, if we are all bits and pieces of the all, those spirits of the dead are as well. Care for the living and those who are not physically living. They are still alive. And I agree. That was something that we kind of got close to, but we didn't actually dive into very much on that.
Ritual. Yeah.
And it does kind of whisper of like Persephone that was mentioned, and other things that we've talked about in the past. For those of you who don't know, I am very heavily rooted in ancestral stuff. It's a joke. Get it? But yeah, so ancestral work is like my basis. And which, speaking of which, for those of you who have been trying to get my e-course, it is back up. The link wasn't working for a while, so my bad. But it works now. But yeah, so ancestral work is my basis. And we have touched on in the past how like Persephone and Demeter's relationship of Persephone going to the underworld, how kind of death holds a piece of us, and life, vice versa. Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like the flower of life pattern where there's pieces that are intertwined. You don't have to hang on. I'm sitting in a chair.
Flower of life.
Exactly. Boom. Say something so like it shows you for sure.
Oh, okay. Hang on. This is the flower of life for anybody who's not sure what we're talking about by flower of life.
Yes.
Okay. Carry on. Props.
So yeah. So I just wanted to bring that back up because that is part of what we were trying to talk about in terms of duties and things as well. There are things that you can do to honor the dead, to give to them, to thank them, to still interact with them because they interact with you, whether you realize it or not. And, conversations, flowers, all of this is things. Going to the graveyard, a lot of times on certain holidays, I will just bring flowers and clean graves. Because even if I don't know them, they deserve to be remembered.
There is actually a ritual for the forgotten dead on my blog. I do it twice a year. I go at Beltane with rose petals, and I go autumn equinox usually with apple slices, and I will go stand with the forgotten graves, the ones that have fallen into disrepair, the ones that are not looked after and things like that, because I think it's important.
So when we're talking about things like, death priestesses and like duties for things in terms of dark goddess stuff and elements like that, that's an element that is something that people don't normally want to look at because they see it as sad or heavy. And that's an element that we work with. And that is something that's still important. It's part of the balance of all things. They still live in us. They still live in everything, really. And in a sense, we are living ancestors. So you guys have heard me use that. So,
Mm.
And time is all wibbly wobbly, right?
Yeah.
So what is even before and
yeah.
future? But anyway, that's that's
the
whole other show.
Podcast has got that coming very soon, and you can actually listen to the first podcast for free. So if you guys want to hear about Cris and I talk about time, you can actually go listen to the What the Flux, at least the first podcast, absolutely free, beginning of each month. But yeah,
I did want to mention that because I do think that just like we were talking about the puddle thing, like if you see people that are not remembered, for instance, remember them, honor them. I just recently watched a movie called Coco, and I thought it was beautiful. Have you seen it yet?
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Go look at it. Ah!
Everybody's raving about it, though. Everyone's saying it's great.
Well, the fact that because it's a kids movie, for those of you who don't know, and the fact that it's put on a level of that with that much thought into things, and it's teaching that your ancestors are still around you and they're part of your family, and it's not like, oh, they're dead, so now they're not family. It just, the thought of that to a kid, and the fact that that's like influencing our children right now is amazing to me. It's amazing. I wish that I had that when I was a kid. So, yes, exactly. Totally.
Hang on. I'm going to go find out what that is.
Yeah, that's loud. Indeed. We're not forgetting about them, whatever that sound was. But yeah, so Coco is great. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Great. But the whole premise is basically, without giving a whole in-depth, it's very based around remembering your ancestors and honoring them, all of them, not picking and choosing who to remember and who not to, but the full entirety of them and kind of their own gifts and their own shortcomings, I guess you could say, that they also brought to the family. And there's just, I just love the movie because, imagine that to a kid, who just thinks, oh, they go away.
Yeah.
Imagine growing up knowing, you're surrounded, and the power behind that is just very touching. So, yeah. I find that there is a horrendous lack of respect for elders these days. Sad, really, I always honor my ancestors. Yeah. I mean, I'm from the South, where it was very ingrained in me. Someone older than you comes in, you stand up, you give them your chair. No questions asked, just do it. You hold the door for them. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir. All of that. So I definitely think that there's also a bastardization of that too, though, that happens where the older person, the hag, for instance, in social media has been kind of made as useless and a burden. And I totally disagree with that. And that's a whole other soapbox I could get on. Believe me, growing up with a bunch of crones.
Probably something we can talk about in a live stream going forward.
Yes, I would say. I would love to talk about that. But yeah, so I wanted to bring that up too, because we kind of talked about duties, but we didn't really talk about in terms of the fact that you are a living ancestor, you are a continuation of these people. And further than that, for those of you who have taken my ancestral course, it goes beyond just what you consider your relatives, because we're relative to everything. So stat wise, we're very into bread, guys.
Yeah, I need to do a video about that.
Yes,
that was something I was going to do a video about, and then we got told to do this one instead. I'm going to do a video soon because I actually got my DNA results back, and it's an interesting topic. So I'm going to share with you guys in a different video my DNA results, what my ancestry swab came back as.
Yeah.
It was far more limited than I expected. I was expecting from all over the place. It was not so much that. I will say right now, though, for you guys, I'm 50% Irish, Scottish, and Welsh. So yeah,
Which basically means she's from England.
no,
No.
I'm not. I'm
Right.
barely English.
Britain.
It's hilarious.
Britain.
So I will do that in a video because I do want to talk about that. In so much as I'm like, hey, these are my results, but doesn't matter because that's what I want to do with that video. So
Yeah.
it's interesting that we've both kind of been through the ringer with all of this, and now we kind of like, these are the things that really freaking matter to us, and these are the things we want to talk about, and these are the doors we want to open. And the fact that Cris and I are doing a book together, which if you've been with us for any time, you know about.
That came from Alive.
Yeah.
Honestly, like you guys give us a lot of, you know, like the sparks that we need to kind of start kindling the fire with a lot of times. Because you're like, hey, do this thing. And we're like, really? Oh, yeah. Let's go do that thing.
And that's gonna be all about death, talking to other goddesses of death, basically. So that's what that will be moving forward. So that's definitely going to be more of the Dark Goddess Rising stuff.
And since everybody's talking about it in chat, I am basically Anglo-Saxon and Native, and then I do have some Scandinavian stuff, but that probably comes down through the Anglo-Saxon because pillaging, lots of it.
Or intermarriages, anyway.
Yes, and I have like a tiny smidgen, like a trace of Greece, apparently. Okay. I don't know much about that, but I'm basically Plymouth Rock. Pretty much.
I'm as basic white girl as it gets, it turns out. But we will talk about that in a different video. I might even rope Cris in for it. We'll see, because it might be interesting as a joint video, actually, because we can talk about that in terms of I'm not doing pre-order. We're not ready for pre-orders for Cris and I's book yet anyway, because we need to get together and do it first, and then we need to figure out how we're splitting it.
Basically, I've discovered this thing called Trello.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. And if any of you are like list makers, or you like Pinterest or bullet journals, you would really like the site Trello. It's TRELLO.com.
It's good for recipes and stuff too.
I talked about it for 5 days. When I found it, Joey was sick of it. I talked about it to the podcast people. Half of them were sick of it. The other half was like, oh, girl, thank you for telling me about this. This is amazing. And then we talked about it for 5 more days. It was great. But that's how kind of I organize projects now. That's how Joey organizes a lot of her projects now. And so we've got stuff that's like Trelloed and planned out, like chapters and things. But yeah.
So I will say about the book between Cris and I, it's going to be a conversational piece. It's almost like as if Hal and Babe are having conversations about death. That's what we want it to be. And possibly other stuff too, knowing them. They'll probably be like, yeah, but this though. And I'll be like,
That's
right, okay.
Cute. Talk about this.
So we're having a chapter for that then, are we? Okay. All right, sure. So that is going to be a project that's upcoming, but it's not going to be right now. The book that I've got coming out, I want it out in the next week or 2, and it really honestly depends when I get the book from the publisher, because I'm waiting right now.
I'm so pumped. This book looks amazing. I'm just saying. I cheated. I know what it looks like.
Yeah, she knows what the inside looks like too, so... Like Cris has even seen the stuff which nobody else has seen yet. Like there is stuff in this book which nobody has seen, and Cris has seen it also.
I'm like the freebie goblin. I'm like snatching up all the things and like yeah.
Well, you kind of pay your weight in energy and time. So
well, yeah.
I do it back for Cris for anybody who's wondering right now. Yeah. So I'm hoping
Dobby is a free elf.
We need our own comic book, right? We need Molly to draw this comic book for us because our moons interact in such a hilarious way. So Cris has got a Cancer moon, which is the crab, right? and I've got a Taurus moon, which is the bull. And we have this skit where the crab is in the ocean and it's picked up on a feeling, right? So that you need to do it.
This? This is really intense. I don't, because these are the claws.
Yes. Yeah.
These are the claws.
Yeah.
So this is, oh God, Joey, I feel something here, but I can't find a word for it. It's so powerful though and poignant. What is this?
And then Taurus comes in with an aviator hat, which is spinning and like over the ocean with a net in its mouth, and is like, "Come on, I got you!" and gives crab
like
a word.
Drops the word. Like, here's the word. It's like, yes, that's perfect. Oh God, we fly away. So welcome to the Dark Goddess Rising chat. This is what we're talking about.
Deathly serious. Deathly serious.
Definitely. Yes. Okay.
Anger border.
Yeah.
Love Anger border.
Hel is actually Hel and Hecate are my main two that I work with. Odin is kind of like seen as a grandfather. He's my household. He's around, but my main two are Hel and Hecate. Which you guys hear me talk about Hel the most, honestly. So
what happens for me, for anybody who does not know, is...
And I do adore Angerboda also. Like, there's something about that woman that I'm just...
She's...
Yes!
Oh, she's just...
Yes!
Mm-hmm.
What would you not do, Angerboda? Yes, I agree.
Yeah, basically. She's the Kellyanne Maddox of the goddess world, basically. What do you want us to do? We'll do whatever you want.
Whatever you want.
But what happens for me with all gods and goddesses is the Morrigan, the way she made me, if you like, or the way that I am, and the way she draws out of me, both, is that I can conduit super easily. I can connect to God and goddess energy super easily. I can channel super easily. It's never an issue for me. The only goddess I have a little bit more occasional difficulty connecting to is Hecate, and I think it's because her and Morrigan tend to keep their distance from one another. That's the impression.
But apparently, if I'm in it, she's more verbal. We learned.
She will talk to me. Just me. She will talk to me if she wants something, but she tends to be a goddess of very few words. If Cris is involved, she's a little bit more chatty. She was pissed the other day. You know, the situation we were talking about with other people's shit. She was pissed at other people the other day, and she was going around creating borders and barriers. And I've never seen Hecate pissed before, and that was a sight to behold. I'm glad I'm not on the receiving end of that. Jeez. So Joy
is amazing at channeling.
So conduiting is kind of what I do, and I will listen and talk and feel and get images from gods and goddesses really easily. So,
which is part of her like individual flower that we were talking about, and like each person having kind of their own thing. For me, I work with pain a lot, and in an empathic sense, you could say, physical pain, emotional pain, thoughts.
She basically absorbs everybody else's pain,
basically, and then pass it on to the earth.
To earth.
So I channel in my own way, or conduit in my own way. But one of the things with that is I also do ancestral work, spirit work stuff. So a lot of times that those two tied together deal with mourning and things of that nature. So yeah, that's my own kind of flair. And that's my own flower. And sometimes, like when you put us together, crazy shit happens.
What do you mean sometimes? All the fucking time.
Yeah.
I am going to write down that I think we should probably do the ancestry video together, and then you can talk about your stuff and I'll talk about the DNA stuff together with Cris. I think that should be joint.
Yeah.
Cris ain't getting a choice. Look at it right there.
She was just like, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm bringing you along. I'll send you a link. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. We'll already be live. Have fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So what else have we? We've both got courses which are very close. They're coming, but we're not going to really talk to you too much about them until they're ready. but I am going to say there are courses in the works. I know what Cris is doing. Cris knows what I'm doing. You guys have to wait. Sorry. But I will say that there are things that you can go ahead and integrate right now. You mentioned that your ancestry course is back up, right?
It is, yeah, it's up again. It's Ancestor Work 101, and it basically covers the basics if you're looking to get into it and don't really know how. That's part of what I'm working on. Anyway, yeah, no, if you're looking for the basics and how you get started, what is one, like, are they, what is the difference between an ancestor, ancestors, and, you know, the ancestor? Like, there's some subtle nuances there. You know, the right ways to work with them, the quote unquote wrong ways, and that whole bitch fest that I had on it. Yeah, that is up on CrisAsburn.com, CRIS, how it's spelled underneath this or above.
Links are down below. I made sure. I'm on top of it.
Oh yeah, it is. Hey, look at that. Good job. Way to be a Virgo. But
you say that like I ever remember. I normally forget, and then I have to go back later.
That's why I said good job. Way to be a Virgo. Because I was like, they're usually not, and usually I have to go, hey, dude, there's no links. But yeah, so there is there's that. There's also sessions that I have available as well where I do shadow work, ancestor work, and also just overall general, because sometimes people don't know what they want to ask or whatever. They just know they need to be there. Sometimes hell directs people to me. That's happened before. And they're like, I don't know why I'm here, but hi. And I'm like, well, let's get started then. Get some cards and stuff.
So definitely, if you want to dig a little deeper with ancestry, seeing as we've covered that, that's something.
We also have a ton of lives that you and I have done together, like a lot. I think, what did we count up to one day? Like 30 almost.
I have no fucking idea.
It was a lot of them. Between her channel and my channel, there is a playlist that has like all of our lives. So if you are just catching this, there's more.
Yeah,
and we do talk about a lot of these topics as well.
Yeah. So a lot of this Dark Goddess Rising is actually us moving forward with this Dark Goddess Rising and what we want, and what the goddesses want, and gods, before they yell at me, because there's a couple of them that have been around lately, moving forward, and what the future looks like. And I actually got a message that it was becoming increasingly important to stand. And all of this kind of shadow work lessons was all about learning to stand in spite of everything. So it was like all this hardship, oops, sorry, microphone, all this hardship like thrown at us, really.
And the microphone.
And the microphone, yeah. But you can stand, though. So stand, and who you want to be in the world, what your message is, where you want to stand, even. And this is a lot of where this Dark Goddess Rising energy has come from. And honestly, you're going to be seeing the words Dark Goddess Rising a lot, because what I am going to do is I'm going to we're probably going to hashtag it. Probably going to use it for everything going forward that is interconnected through this Dark Goddess Rising energy. We have a point that we know that we want to get to, which we're not.
There is already a Dark Goddess Rising hashtag, so you and I are going to have to talk about that.
Okay.
That exists already, so we're going to have to figure some shiz out. But
okay.
I already checked it. Hashtag Capricorn.
But we'll figure that out. But basically, we're going to link everything from this point that is important to this energy going forward, because to me, this is the thing. This is the important energy. This is what matters. It's not necessarily what defines us, but it definitely is what's motivating. It's definitely the doorways. It's definitely the roots of a lot of what we talk about.
The initiations, the in-betweens, the
magic, the witchcraft, the spirituality. Yeah.
Pillars.
Cris and I have a point that we're going to start working together towards, and we're going to be going and questioning other people about it and stuff. We're nowhere near ready to tell you guys what it is yet, but I will allude to the fact that we know where we're going. And we really think it's important. It's about,
like, we're back and we're not empty-handed. We got lots of stuff in the
yeah.
tunnel, coming down the tunnel.
I will say, right now on Starry-Eyed Supplies, if you guys want to look at lessons of sovereignty, all of the Queen lessons, other than the Queen of Swords, which is on my channel for free, on this channel for free. I say it, my channel. Like, when Cris and I are here, I forget. It's all shared anyway at this point. Who cares?
Okay.
But the other 3 queens are on the starryeyedsupplies.com as audio lessons. You can just buy them and download them straight away. And that's talking about sovereignty. That's talking about shadows. That's talking about empowering yourself. It's talking about the goddesses that I associate with those. And if you're wondering, Pentacles was a Demeter Persephone energy, Queen of Pentacles, and lessons of that. Somebody actually had a tailor-made meditation off that, and I'm really tempted to do a slightly different one and then put it up because I really enjoyed that imagery. Queen of Cups was Aphrodite, and lessons of like sisterhood again, so that was interesting. It was more focused around beauty though with that, so that was really interesting about where depth is to individuals. And then Swords, as I said, is already on the YouTube channel, and Wands was Morrigan. So there you go. Those are already up on the store.
I have no idea what's happening right now.
We got blade over shield. We got blade over shield.
I'm so excited about that.
Oh, so good. I'm so proud of myself. I had avoided doing stick incense for a really long time because a lot of people do stick incense. And I was like, well, it doesn't feel authentic enough to me, which is something we've talked about, for me to do one. So what I actually came to is like, I got to a place where like people were asking me for it. And I decided what I'll do is I'll do like the big starry favorites, like the starry essentials, if you like. So Blade Over Shield is going to be the first one. Temple of Witches is going to be the second one. And then I'm going to look at things like Otherworld, and other bits and pieces moving forward. So that's something I've got coming out. When will the live be? What, with Cris and I for Ancestry and DNA and things? Next week?
That answer.
I was trying to get Cris to do anything right now. It's like herding cats. You guys don't even know.
It's like herding cats. I still owe you an interview, I believe.
You
actually.
Do. And I could do with that right now as well, because yeah. So I'll try and get Cris to do it around this time next week. I'll try. I'll like put it on the Trello like Cris.
I'm looking at my book right now, guys. So I do have a doctor's appointment in the morning, but after that I should be okay. We could do it
same time next week.
The 13th.
Yes. Friday 13th.
Yes.
Same
Friday
time.
the 13th. Same time, same crazy channel.
Okay. We can definitely do that. So that's that fixed for you guys. Yeah, I'm really proud of myself for the stick incense as well, because I wasn't like, this sounds ridiculous, but I wasn't sure I was going to be happy enough with it. Yes. Okay. So the 10K sub giveaway reached a bit of a problem because I had money issues. And I've got a box full of stuff ready to give away. So I will hang on, I'll write a note to remind myself to do that 10K giveaway. And I will look at parameters of how to do that. I might do it through Facebook rather than YouTube, because I am not Still not best pleased with YouTube right now, so I might do that through the Facebook page or something.
Next week on my channel?
Sure.
Okay.
And so I haven't forgotten. I've got a box full of stuff to give away. It's just been like the whole point of the beginning of this video was like it's just been crazy.
It has been cray.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that I've got a box full of stuff. It's in the cupboard. It's waiting to go. It's
You just reminded me of like, oh, I've got a jar of dirt.
I've got a jar
box
of
full of
dirt.
stuff.
I'm gonna give it away. Yeah.
I've got a box full of stuff.
To the point where I've even got like I've got this oil on my desk right now, which I keep meaning to like take proper pictures of and put up on the store. Hang on, I'll show you guys because it's gorgeous. I'm just going to shake it up because it really does need a shake. So it's one of the oils that needs a shake. Shake, 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 Sonora, shake your body line. Shake, 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 Sonora. Right. So this is bone oil.
Okay, I believe you. Okay.
I mean, it is. You don't need to not believe me.
You.
So this is bone oil.
It's beautiful. I love that one.
And this is sitting on my desk like, Joey, you need to.
That's like stuff that you don't even want to use it. You just want to stare at it.
People use my oils to meditate. There's so many people
I'm not
surprised. Who like message me and like, I just don't use it. I just sit here and stare at it. And I'm like, you know that like base oils do have an expiration date, right? Like base oils all do.
Yeah.
Usually about a year. I'll get them fresh and they'll last at least a year. So yeah, so I will remember to do the 10k sub giveaway. We're actually at 11k subs as of this morning, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, maybe I'll do 11k sub giveaway. Hello, Bill. You're doing cards for everybody. What's going on?
You know how like sometimes you have cards next to you and you just pick them up to shuffle them? Like you're not even going to do anything. You just shuffle them because it's like comforting. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have this issue?
Yeah, totally.
I will pick them up to shuffle them, which I've been switching between decks. But then I remembered I haven't done my daily cards, which I did. Then I did Joey's daily cards because I don't ask her. I just do them because she's going to ask me eventually. And then I was like, well, I'll pull some for like overall for everybody.
What did we get?
I got Gaia Nurturing and River Movement.
Oh, it's not bad for goddess energy moving forward.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, and also the nurture one I really love because she's like combing the land with her hands and leaving rainbows and then like breathing into the land. So it's like it's breathing blessings and giving it life and just very like it's a creatrix kind of energy, which I love. But it's like a gentle creatrix, active but gentle. So I thought that was nice. So that's what I've about it today if you wanted them or not. Just a general overview of just like the mood of the chat and whatnot. That's all I got going on. I'll tell you yours later.
Okay. So basically where we're going from this point is pretty much what Barbara just said, like all the dark goddesses are calling on their warriors, pretty much. And it's kind of like celebrating the medicine in yourself and celebrating the medicine in everybody else as well. There's definitely like what you need to give voice to, what you need to bring to the world,
lots of that.
what you need to stand for, or I mean, I'm always hesitant to be like stand against because I don't. There are things that we need to stand against in the world, but it tends to be injustices. Sometimes it's individuals and that can't be helped. Sometimes there are corrupt ruling bodies. Sometimes there is that kind of stuff to deal with that we need to take a stand against and for. So we need to stand with people who need us to stand with them, you know, that kind of if we stand, we must stand for things. We must root. Okay, hang on. Spirits are shouting. Hang on. We must become rooted in a better way so that our roots spread and grow and we can be more abundant and connected in the future. Okay. So there's definitely, sometimes we must hold, sometimes we must stand, sometimes we must take root and refuse to be moved from a position.
Sometimes we need to form a shield wall.
And
a death shield wall.
Yeah. Because this is one of the messages that we actually received about death shields, and we were both like, "What?" Like,
come again.
because it was quite funny because I had read something earlier that was talking about how a particular OM can guard and shield from death, and I was like, "Well, that's ridiculous. Nothing can shield from death. Death comes for you when death comes for you."
Yeah. Cut to later on, we're talking, I'm channeling, and I'm like, what is a death shield? Because I feel like you're gonna know what the hell that means.
Yeah.
And well, funny. I had a thought today.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway.
Yeah. So that's definitely wall of death. Death wall. You know that scene in 300 where they pile up the bodies? That's a death wall. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes.
So to understand each other, to listen, to really listen to one another is definitely
to listen, not to have a response, but to listen to understand. Yeah.
To accept that other people are flawed just as we are flawed. To try and understand the pain and the hurt and the issues that other people have without giving power to them over yourself. Because it's an interesting balance that's definitely it's always in flux, which is where we are anyway, liminal. Because sometimes they're going to have a little bit more power in the situation. Sometimes you're going to have a little bit more power in the situation, and it just flows, it ebb and flows that way. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as like one person doesn't have all the power all the time, because then you get into like abuses of power and such. But to really truly give credence to another person as a human being, as a soul, as a mind, as someone who thinks and feels and experiences, is a really powerful act, particularly within spirituality. I think a lot of us get into spirituality to have a little bit more control over our lives. A lot of us turn to spirituality when times are difficult and we need a little more order, and we're like trying to grasp on too tightly. And I honestly feel like the next step of our spiritual evolution is to let go of that a little bit and be like, it's not about power over anybody, not even yourself. It's power to align. It's power from within. Because when you are truly empowered, you don't need power over. You are power. You are dark goddess. You are spirit incarnate. So,
and there's also an element of that where it's not about being the perfect whatever.
Yes.
And I say whatever because, you know, a lot of times when we say perfect, we think of like the pristine kind of side of that. But there are those who seek to be the perfect, like, warrior, the perfect, you know, whatever. Like, help me out, Joey. Like, the perfect, the perfect mess, like all of it. And it's not about perfection. It's just not.
There's a really lovely line in one of my favorite movies, which is The Last Samurai. And there's a guy who talks about spending his life looking for the perfect blossom, and cherry blossom, and it would not be a life wasted. And as he's about to die, as he's mortally wounded, he sees a cherry tree, and he says, "They're all perfect." And that really stays with me, that the idea of perfection is that one thing is superior when perfection is not attainable, but it's also present in all things as they are, without comparison.
I think acceptance is an element of it. But I also think because the thing is, there's a line between just accepting and then becoming complacent. And then accepting, but like working on more, like in terms of not being perfection, but in terms of exploring, but in terms of experience, in terms of knowledge.
I would say it like this: you should never have acceptance without unacceptance, because there should be some things that you do not accept.
That was such a flux answer. Yes, go on.
There should be some things you do not accept. You do not accept somebody else's right to rule over you, to live your life, to tell you what to do. You do not accept somebody abusing you or in general. You know, there are definitely things that you can stand for and against, like I said.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do have to accept the situation, and railing against the situation is not the answer. But there is always, to my mind at least, there's always like a middle path. The middle path is not set in stone. It instead is much more fluxy. It's much more labyrinth of the underworld. It's much more inward spiral. It changes and shifts, and where the exact location of the center is never dead center. It moves. But we should never say there is one answer to a life, a situation, a spiritual way of being. There is never one way. There is the way that harmonizes with you. There is the answers that mean the most to you. There is the feelings that drive you and better understanding. And
I mean,
then
sorry, finish your thought.
no, it's gone now. You
Oh, okay. That also ties into lessons in terms of your, like, you know, the rough edges and things I was talking about at the beginning of this, because there comes a time where you have to just like do you. And for all the logic in the world, for all the stories that other people tell you about what's happened to them, there is something inside of you that burns to know this path, whatever it is. And if it's been burning that long and you're still feeling it, like, why are you not honoring that? I think that a lot of times it's the inner compass that I talk about on Patreon. Like, there is something in us that knows our blueprint. And no one else can tell you that. The end. No matter who they are, no matter how old they are, no matter how knowledgeable they are, no matter how empathic they are, no matter how intuitive they are, no matter how, you know, structured they are or successful they are, no one can tell you that but you. And I'm not saying disregard everything in the world, because a story is important. Every story is important, but your story is the most important for you. And that doesn't mean you have to step on people to do that, but yeah.
So Molly is vibing with what we're selling right now and says, people make out that the middle path sounds goody-goody, but I think it is more difficult. The middle path requires flexibility, critical thinking, and courage.
I'm just saying, have y'all ever seen Grey Jedis? It ain't easy. You got to balance that.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. I think that there is nothing easy about the middle path, because you have to both know where your convictions are and your morals are, but you also allow for other people's, and you allow the fact that you could change and grow at any point. You don't have to be inflexible.
Yeah. Well, and also there's an element in that too where, like, say you come to a block in the road because someone else has put it there, instead of just being like, fuck you, block in the road, and fuck the people that you rode in on. I don't know why they're riding people, but anyway, instead of doing that, you could be like, you know, why would they put it here? And you could explore that and, you know, see what they're really trying to say as opposed to what they're saying, if that makes sense. So word choice is really important. Inflection is really important. And a lot of times it'll tell you plenty about a person just from looking at those two things. Sometimes when people rub against your edges because they ran into them, some of the words that they say a lot about what they've told themselves is happening in their head, not about what you've said or done. Now, yeah, sometimes legit it is about that, but there are cases where you kind of look past the surface, and that's also a dark goddess thing, is like looking past the surface into the undercurrent of things, looking past and into the roots, seeing, not delving in like psychic spying, but there is a level of empathy.
And it's totally psychic spying. Don't listen.
Yeah. No, there's a level of empathy, and there's a level of related relatedness, relativeness, where it's like, okay, look, I know you came to fight, but I see that you are fighting something in your head, and that doesn't make it less real, but you are fighting something in your head.
Yeah.
And I don't have to give you a blade to throw yourself on.
No.
I don't. I can just stand where I'm standing.
Yeah.
And
in the light. Stand in the light of your truth. Honor who you are. Honor that they're an individual as well. But in that honoring, you don't have to take any bullshit at the same time. So that's definitely been and I'm gonna say it's an ongoing lesson for me. I'm not gonna sit here and say like, yeah, I learned this lesson then.
Again, perfection. It's not a thing.
Yeah. Because it's ongoing, it's difficult, it's spirits just sent fizzing up my nose. What? Oh, thanks for that. Spirit work, it's thrilling.
Larry. It's good to be back.
Yeah,
I miss talking to everybody. There's so many people in here today, by the way.
Yep. And we just hit 2 hours. Cris didn't think we were going to make it.
Because I told her, I was like, Joey, you might have to lead us on this because I'm rusty. For those of you who make YouTube videos out there, like, you don't make them after a while, like, you get kind of, how do I make words word?
Yeah.
And so I was like, you might have to take the lead on this one. I don't know if we're going to be able to do 2 hours like we normally do, but apparently we can. I'll stand corrected.
So we should probably wrap up because we've got other stuff we need to do, and I need to go make food before we do that. So thank you guys. There are a lot of people showed up today, which was wonderful. I was like, is anyone gonna show up? Like, because we haven't done this in a while.
And that's something I'll say really quick too, that I had been worried about, because with everything that happened in terms of the medical situation and everything for why I've been gone, that I explained earlier in the video for those of you join in later. I was worried about, like your algorithm and stuff like that, and like people remembering you because it's online, man. People forget fast if it's not in front of their face. So like it warms my heart to see like almost 50 people here.
And we had nearly 60 at one point, which is actually probably a record. Like 60 people on one
I didn't
live.
even see that. Yeah.
We got up to nearly 60 at one point, which is actually a record, I'm pretty sure. That's like the most we've had in a live.
So thank you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we invite you to come along on this Dark Goddess Rising journey with us. It's going to show up in all sorts of ways from this point going forward. And that's probably, it's a bit like a theme. It's going to be a bit of a theme going forward. And I'm really excited. I know that it's going to bear some beautiful, incredible fruit at different points along that path. So thank you everybody who showed up today. Like, super appreciate it. We really do. It makes all the difference. It really does that, you come and listen to us ramble on for 2 hours. So we will arrange for same time next week. We'll go on Chris's channel though, and we'll talk about ancestry and my DNA and all that jazz. And we'll do it at the same time, because
you can find, it's not linked underneath, but you can find it via the website link.
I thought your YouTube was on
the
there.
Instagram is on there. No, it's not, but that's okay. You also, if you just spell my name in the search above, it'll show you.
Yeah. So, you can follow the links down below, and you'll find Cris at some point on all of those places. You can go on my stuff, and you'll find Cris.
That's true. I will not be silent. You will keep me in your channel. Okay.
She said that like I don't want it. Chris's channel is literally Cris Asburn.
Yeah, it is. It's just Cris Asburn, spelled CRIS. Ashburn, the result of burning is ash. Cris Asburn.
I've just
and you'll know because at the top it'll say like death midwife, psychopomp, bleh, like at the top, just across with death head moths, which is my logo.
Yeah.
So
there you go. More moths. Synchronicity.
I love me some moths.
Yeah.
I actually saw a white one out front this morning, by the way.
Aw.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
you can find us at the usual places. All the links are down below. If you want to join us on Patreon, we both have Patreons for exclusive content. You want to, I mean, there will be a little bit here and there on the YouTube channels. The YouTube channels are not as prominent. Facebook is much better. And Instagram is really quite busy for me. I like Instagram a lot. And you can find us at all the links down below. If you want to consult with either of us, you can do that on the website. So you want to come talk to us and like get Goddess help or all that good stuff. You can follow either the Cris or my links.
Ancestry, whatnot.
And Cris and I have been talking about doing joint sessions.
Oh yeah, that was a thing. I remember that now. There was a whirlwind of ideas in the middle of the whirlwind of life, and I was like, I'm gonna write that down, and I'll get back to it in a second.
So if you guys basically want a joint session with Cris and I, which one lady had quite by accident, but it was enriching and interesting, so it worked really well because we weren't sure if it would work, but it did. So that will be something going forward if you guys would like it, that we're going to look into how we could possibly do that, because that's going to take a minute to figure out, but still that's something that we can do.
Yeah, let us know your feedback on that if that is something you guys would be interested in as a
joint session.
Yeah, as a service to even provide. Like, that's an important question to ask. Is that something you guys would even want?
Let us know.
You give us our best ideas oftentimes, so let's just toss it out there.
Cool. Right, we're gonna wind this up because we're 7 minutes over, and I've got to get some food and other bits and pieces, and then
we have recording and such to do.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So thank you guys again for joining us. It was amazing. I mean, I really love doing these. I really miss doing these. Thank you so much for everybody showing up. We will do this next time. Lily says yes, joint sessions. We will do this next time, but it will be on Chris's channel. We will share links beforehand. The same.
Talking about ancestry and whatnot.
Ancestry, DNA doesn't even matter with the DNA. That's all good stuff. Cool. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, like, Dark Goddess Rising. I know we ramble a little bit like we always do, and some of it's super, super heavy, and then some of it's nonsense. But that's how we do. So
are we doing it yet? Can I?
What are you doing?
Can I say my thing? I haven't said my thing in forever. In 6 months, Joey, I haven't said.
You look like you were like hiding. Like, it was like, all right,
I'm not. I'm getting very close.
Okay, that's very close. Go on then.
I love your faces.
If you weren't creeped out before, you are now.
I haven't said it in like 6 months publicly, guys. Come on. I love your faces.
Stay fluxy, everybody. Have a great weekend, and we will catch you on the flip.
Yes.
On the flux flip. On the flux.
On the flip flux. On the flip flops. In the
flux. Oh, and that's how we're going to end it. We're going to do this.
Bye, y'all.